Hey there, my podcasting friends. Welcome back to the Podcast Professor. I know it's been a little while, but I am back. You know, lots of stuff going on around here lately, but I have some new tips for you guys. So I thought I'd put together this video about the 7 steps that you will want to take if you are a smaller podcast and you want to start running sponsorships or ads. So stay tuned. I've got all the tips you're going to want coming right up. All right, so step number 1. First, you have to decide why you're even running ads. And go with me here. This is going to sound like a silly question. Of course, you want to run ads or have sponsorships in order to make some money, right? You have what you think is a big enough audience now to start running ads, to start potentially, repping other products and things. And maybe those people in that audience will be interested in those things. And you're thinking maybe this can start making your podcast a little bit of money. Yes, I get it. It's of course about money, but why are you running ads to begin with? Needs to be more than just about money. It needs to be about providing your audience with something. You should always be trying to give your audience something, not just take from them. So anytime you're doing something with your show that is potentially for your own benefit, it also needs to benefit the audience as well. So what does this mean? This means don't take on sponsors that do not appeal to the audience. So first you have to understand who your audience is and what appeals to your audience. So that's our second point. Understanding who your audience is. Now, what exactly does your audience like? What kinds of things are they into? And a lot of this has to do with your show. So you're going to want to determine a persona. Come up in your mind with who is a member of your audience. Give them a name. Maybe their name's Jimmy or Samantha. And maybe in my case, I do a lot of video game and nerd culture type podcasts. So maybe they're into video games. Okay, what kinds of video games are they into? What kinds of things do video gamers buy? What kinds of things would be appealing to them? What kinds of discounts can you offer them for those kinds of products or services that would then be appealing? So start with that. Now, the second step for point number 2 is, what do you like? Because you don't want to be running ads for things that you don't actually like. You don't ever want to lie to your audience. You want to be genuine. So if you're running ads for trinket item number 1, then you need to have genuinely enjoyed trinket item number 1, or at least have wanted one yourself, so you can talk from a place of being genuine about it. So the third step here is determining if you are going to go for an ad provider service, a company that pulls all these different companies together and offers you ads, takes a cut, and basically runs the connections for you. Or are you going to go to the individual companies yourself? Are you going to go directly to them, directly to their marketing side of their company and say, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm able to provide for you? The difficulty with the first one, going to an advertising firm or company that consolidates these other advertisers, is that you have to have some pretty staggering numbers. It starts at around 5,000 plays, 5,000 downloads, plays, however you want to define that, for each episode in the first 30 days, just to even, for them to even really be able to sell you to different advertisers. And that's a pretty hefty number. Most of us are not hitting that number. There's probably about, 2% of podcasts that are actually in that range. The majority of the smaller shows out there are not over 5,000. Now, to really be beneficial for a company like that to try to sell you to other advertisers, you have to be closer to 30,000 downloads. And that is significantly, that's 6 times more than the 5,000 number. So here's what you're going to want to do. You are going to need to go directly to the individual companies yourself. And it's not as difficult as you might think, because they all are used to other individuals, other companies, other content creators coming to them and saying, hey, I'd like to advertise your product. So they have something in place, most likely. So the next step here is step number 4. You're going to create a list of all the companies that you want to rep for. So you don't have to do all of them all at once. You could start with, say, the first dozen. So list a dozen different companies. In my case, one of them, for example, is Loot Crate. And Loot Crate makes a lot of sense. I do a Fallout podcast, I do video game podcasts, and my audience, a percentage of my audience, including myself, has or would subscribe to Loot Crate or would ask somebody to buy that for them, say for their birthday or for Christmas or something like that. So it makes sense. Loot Crate has Fallout subscriptions where you get a crate every month, and it's like t-shirts and little guys. I've got some around here, not within arm's reach, but things you can put on the wall, stuff like that. The kinds of things that my audience would actually like. So I made a list, like the top 12. And the other thing I did here is I polled my audience. I shot out some messages on Twitter. I shot out some messages on our Discord. And I said, hey, what kinds of products would you like advertised? And not just what kinds of products would you like advertised, but what kinds of products would you like to get a discount on? Because that's one of the ways that they help promote. You start reaching out to them, and you're going to want to create a list of all the companies that you have reached out to and what stage you're in and how you reached out to them. So that's step number 5. Step number 5 is find their contact information. And there are 2 places that you primarily want to go to find their contact information. One, their website. And chances are their website will be customer focused, not business to business focused. And this is another big point with this. You are business to business. You need to approach them as if you are a business wanting to work with them, wanting to be professional, not just some Joe Schmo in front of a microphone doing your podcast thing who doesn't really take it seriously. You need to present yourself as professionally as you can and reach out to them as a business. So if you search the contact information on the website, you might find a form or an email where you can contact directly their marketing or their promotions department. Chances are, though, that a lot of these companies, it's a lot harder to find than you would think. So you need to look other places. The next place that I would look is Twitter. And Twitter is great because oftentimes you can direct message or you can @ them and you will get the response of somebody who's running their social media. And that person running their social media is going to give you the contact for the other person you need to be going to. Chances are that will be an email. So then you're going to craft an email, and I'll have one up on the screen right there. And you can use mine, but sculpt it for yourself. And in the email, you need to say hello to the company. Hello, company marketing department. Introduce yourself. Say, I'm so-and-so. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my podcast. And then explain to them why you're reaching out to them. So in my case, I've written, I've been a fan of and subscriber of your service, and I would love to run ads for you on our network and or on our podcast. I've been pitching networks. So that's something that I'm doing. Then you explain something about your product, your podcast, your network, whatever you're running, that would explain to them why you might be a good fit and why you're going to hit a certain percentage of an audience that they would be interested in marketing to. So in my case, I've noted that we're still a fairly new network. The network's is about a year old now. And our top shows like the Fallout Lorecast, Chad Fallout 76 Story, and the Elder Scrolls Lorecast are now regularly breaking into the top 50 gaming podcasts in the US, which is true. And the Fallout Lorecast has been as high as the top 10, which is also true. We peaked in the top 10 just recently. So that's appealing. I don't have to give them specific numbers, but I can give them something that says, hey, you might want to use us as a service. Now, this can be anything at all. This can be, we've grown 300% in the last 2 months. Or you could go with specific numbers. We regularly hit this number of listeners every episode. And don't be afraid to put the information in there and be honest, because there are companies, especially when it comes to a partnership, that doesn't cost them anything. And they're happy. If you're hitting 200, 300 downloads, that's fine. You can start with that. And maybe they'll be interested, and maybe they'll share with you a code and give you a commission on any sales and just get you started. It doesn't cost them anything to put that out there and let you try to sell their product. If they're going to run ads, then that's going to be different, but that's a good way to start. Also, if this doesn't work now, at least you've established contact with the company. And when you come back a few months later and your show has grown, you can say that. You can say, hey, I contacted you 3 months ago. Since that time, our show has doubled in size. That shows growth. And now you have a history of connecting with them and they understand who you are. So don't be afraid to do that. So at the end of it, you're going to put Could you please direct me to the person responsible for advertising and partnerships? I'd love to go into more detail about what we can offer you. And then sign it, send it off, and go to the next company on your list. Now, you are going to get one of 3 potential responses, and this is the 7th step, because you have to wait till you hear something back. Either you're not going to get a response at all, and that's okay. And most of the time, you aren't. That's why you can just keep sending these out, because people are busy. People have jobs. People have other priorities on their mind. And if you don't hit somebody at the right time when they're really looking for somebody else, then they might just skip over your email and go on with the rest of their day. You're not making anybody upset. These are just business to business emails, and you're just doing what you do because you're a business, right? So if you do get no response, then what you can do is you follow up with another email a week later that says, hey, I reached out to you about a week ago. Here's the information I sent you. I was hoping you could set me up with the person that I could talk to about this kind of thing. Then about 2 more weeks after that, follow up with another email. And if they don't respond after that, then wait a few more months and then try it again. The second thing that can happen is that they pass you off to somebody else. And in this case, especially if you're sending out a message on Twitter, that's probably what's going to happen. They're going to give you an email address for somebody else, and then you're going to start over at the beginning. You're going to send them a very similar message to the first one you sent out. Hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is why it would be beneficial to work with us. Let's have a conversation. And it will go from there. The third thing that happens is that you actually get the potential for some sort of sponsorship or advertising. So here's where things get interesting. You will probably get offered one of 3 different options. So 3 different options here. First, the kind of, I'll call it the casual sponsorship, right? They say, okay, we'd love to work with you. We are going to give you a discount code for you to share with your audience, and maybe a UTM link that they can click through, which automatically basically applies the code to their cart if they get to the website. And you will get X amount of money for for any time you sell something of our product, and your audience will get a certain percentage off, and we'll keep track of that. We'll pay you out on that, and we'll just go from there. You make a commission basically on anything you sell, which is fair. That's a fair way to do it. They don't pay anything up front to be on your show. You're promoting their product, and you can make money off it. That's a great way to do it. The other thing you could get is a paid promotion, where they actually give you more than just, hey, here's a code and here's a percentage off of the product. In those cases, read the details. This is something that we could do an entire other video on. And sometimes those details aren't particularly fair to the content creator. So read those details very carefully. Make sure that you are understanding what you're signing up for, what you're actually getting out of it, and if it's limiting your ability to do other things, to work with other promotions. You're really going to want to make sure that you're, dotting your T's and crossing your I's. Now, the other option is that they will want to run ads on your podcast. And so that means that you will be charging them for the number of ads you're running per 1,000 plays. And if this works out for you, then you should probably start at about $15 per 1,000 for pre-roll ads that show up right at the beginning of the episode, or $20 to $25 per 1,000 for mid-roll ads. So those are ads that you put a little spot in the middle of your show and say, hey, I want to thank you, the sponsor, for whatever, and you talk about it during the middle of your show. The thing here is that you need to be very clear about the size of your audience, be very honest about it, and guarantee them a certain number of episodes based on the first 30 days of audience that you will hit with an episode. So another way to say that is, when you put out an episode, in the first 30 days, how many plays does it get? Does that make sense? So if on average your episodes get 300 plays in the first 30 days, then that's the number you give them. They will be looking at cost per 1,000. So for example, if you hit, say, 333 plays in the first 30 days, then it takes you 3 episodes to get to 1,000. So if they want to buy 1,000 ads, then you would run that ad for 3 episodes. Does that make sense? So you have to do some math there, figure it out, make sure that you guys agree on that, and then set that up. And then you find out what is their budget, how much do they want to spend, and that will determine how many episodes you run their ads for. That's a little more complex, but it could work out great if they're looking for X number of episodes and X number of people to get their ad in front of. The other thing I'd recommend here is if you are going to run ads, then don't just run ads for, say, an episode or two. That doesn't really hit your audience very well. Your audience needs to hear about something 5 to 7 times before they remember that that's a thing. So shoot for something that's going to run for, let's say you're a weekly podcast, for a few months, if possible. And again, it depends on the company. It depends on their spend. It depends on how much they want to put into running ads on your show. So there you go. Those are all the tips I have for you to get started with running ads. And don't be afraid to reach out to places. Don't be afraid if you're a smaller show. There are a lot of companies out there that are looking to get information out to a potential audience. And if you are the right fit, even if your numbers are small, they may want to work with you. So give it a shot. And I'd love to actually hear back from you guys if any of this works and if you're running any ads. So comment on the episode. If you're watching the video version of this, comment down below. If you're watching the video or if you're listening on the audio podcast, you can just send me a note at robotsnetwork@gmail.com or on Twitter at robotsradio. I'd love to hear if this works out for you guys. And until next time, I'm your podcast professor, Tom, and I will talk to you again later. See you.